Hello, hello, hello. My name is Abby Mickey, and this is the Wheel Talk Podcast. We talk about women's cycling, women's professional cycling, and I'm joined by my amazing co-hosts, Gracie Alvin.
Well, who was she going to pick first this time? hello.
And Loren Rowney.
Keeping us on our toes, as always, Abby.
I got to.
Hello, everyone. Good to be back.
We're here to talk about Strade Bianche. We're going to talk a bit about, well, the draft update and a bit of Ronde van Drenthe to come. Let's dive right into it. Strade Bianche. One of my favorite races of the spring, if I'm honest. I think we were treated to a pretty good race. There was a lot going on tactically, strength-wise, team dynamics. I think the entire bit that we got to see was super interesting. Kind of a bummer that we got such a short chunk of live coverage for this one. I remember last year we got a good bit more, and this year we had under 50K, which is a little bit disappointing, but you know, we got to see the major action in the final 30K. I'll just give a quick rundown of the main talking points of the race. Peloton pretty much stayed together until the major 10 kilometer almost 10 kilometer sector of the race, about halfway through, where it was actually a little trek that put most of the pressure on the peloton. There was a break that formed, including Neve Bradbury, Amber Crack, Lizzie Diagnan, Rihanna Marcus. Pretty strong break. The only three that remained out front of those was Amber Crack, Rihanna Marcus, and Elena Amialusik of UAE Team ADQ. And then it came back together for La Tolfe with 13 kilometers to go. At that point, Niewiadoma threw down probably the biggest move she did during the race after a lead out from Shabby. And after that is when Kopecky and Longo Borghini were able to slip away from the others and ride to the finish. That was about 10 kilometers from the finish that those two were able to get away. Longo Borghini did a bulk of the work to keep them away from the chasing pack that included Niewiadoma, Demi Vollering, Shirin Van Anrooy caught back on, as did Kristen Faulkner. The final climb up to Piazza del Campo. The final climb up to Piazza del Campo is where Kopecky made her final move and was able to drop Longo Borghini and ride solo to the finish, and Longo Borghini crossed for second. The fight for third was between Kasia Niewiadoma and Demi Vollering. Vollering rolled past Niewiadoma right at the line, so Niewiadoma finished in fourth. So let's talk about it. A lot of Kopecky. Going into this race, she was really honest that she wanted to win it. And I think on the day, there was no one that was going to beat her. No matter what they did, no matter what group came to the bottom of that final climb together, she was just on one. She looked amazing.
Yeah, I thought she was super patient. I don't know what your guys' opinion was of the race, but I actually went back and rewatched parts of it. Just because, I don't know, even though it was 2 days ago, sometimes you forget like crucial little moments that unless you write it down on paper, and I need to get better at doing that. That was just sort of a takeaway for me, that they seemed patient and in control, even when their hand was forced. And I think it was at a point where Marcus, Amber Crack, and who was the third rider? Elena Music. A good solid break was still up the road, and they were not represented. Neither was Canyon or Little Trek or Phoenix de Koonik, and everyone just said, yeah, no, you work. And so they put Neve Fisher-Black on the front, and they still didn't seem panicked at that moment. And then just throughout the race for me, I thought, we've seen Kopecky like last year. What did she go with 40 kilometers to go? And of course, this year it was a different race because they did that finishing loop twice up La Tolfe. But yeah, that was my impression of her race. She was patient, and she went actually at the perfect moment, and it was a good situation.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, Loren, you're right. She was really patient. Sometimes when you're a rider in that situation, all the pressure's on you. You've put all the pressure on yourself. You've indicated that it's a race that you've targeted and would like to win again. It's easy to get a little bit nervous and do too much work or go with too many moves. So yeah, she just looks super classy, super strong. She sits the bike so nicely. Like, her core strength must be rock solid. She just doesn't wriggle around at all, but like you could just tell that she was just looking at the other riders and really picking those moments. And we'll get into it in a bit, but some riders don't do that as well, even though they've got the experience. So yeah, it was just like a bit of a masterclass in bike racing from Kopecky. But I think the other teams or some of the other individuals didn't necessarily give it to her, but she didn't have to work super hard for it either, which was a bit disappointing.
Other than SD Worx, who finished the race 1-3 with Demi Vollering coming in third, the other two strongest teams on the day were clearly Little Trek and Canyon SRAM. I mean, Little Trek did a good amount of work to make sure that Longo Borghini didn't have to do much before the final two sectors of of dirt. And they had Lizzie Dagnan was up there on the front doing a ton of work, and Amanda Spratt as well. And Longo Borghini and Shirin Van Anrooy just really had to play it cool, be patient for the final attacks, and just see kind of how the race played out. Whereas Canyon were really all over the place with attacks, and Shabby was up there looking really strong. Like, I feel like Elise Shabby is such an interesting rider who's been up there for a couple years now, but hasn't been at the top. Like, she's incredible, but she's not been a winner. But I feel like this race, we saw something different from her, where she was really active in those final groups in a way that we've not seen from her before. Like, she was there to support Kasia Niewiadoma, but she's rarely there in this close to the final. So that was pretty cool to see. But I think, and then obviously we saw from Kasia her normal competitive behavior, where she was the main instigator once they hit the final gravel bit, and that really broke the race apart in favor of Kopecky. And we can talk about that and how she does this a lot. And at the finish, Kasia, it was hard not to feel for her. Like, she was gutted. And I think a lot of that was she missed out on a podium spot just barely. Demi was coming around her and she just had nothing left in the tank. And to once again finish fourth in this race, like, she's been on the podium 6 times. No, she's been in the top 5 6 times, on the podium 4 times, but in the top 10 9 times in her participations of this race. Only, I think, twice or 3 times has she not finished in the top 10. And to once again finish fourth, but also just be that close to being on the podium, you could tell how much that meant to her and how gutted she was. But I think we can look back on her performance and how strong she was and where she used her energy. And
I think she said in an interview, though, when she has been criticized at times, like, people love her attacking style. We know she's just a ferocious racer, and she puts it all out there. And you saw, like, their plan was that Shabby did an incredible effort to string out the whole peloton. She split the bunch when they hit Latolfa for the last time, and then Kasia launched and basically created what we saw was the finishing group of those 4 riders. And then, of course, Lotta went with Elisa Longo Borghini, and she was isolated. But I think it's a case, there's so many, if we look back over the years, moments where she is quite often the only rider from Canyon SRAM left in that select group. I mean, Little Trek, we will discuss them a bit more, but they've been racing really well. I mean, Elisa Longo Borghini had the support of Shirin again. And then, of course, you had the dynamic duo of Demi and Lotta. So when you're in that situation and you're forced to just jump on everything, of course, when that final move went, the winning move, she didn't have that rider there to help her. And it makes you wonder, you were saying, Abby, that Shabby's getting closer and closer to those final finishing groups. Had she not strung it out on Latolfa, what would have been the situation then? Would another team have done it? We saw Phoenix Sekunek actually doing a ton of work too before that to get their riders into position. But yeah, for me, that's always the thing with Kasia, is she's just, we've said it before, she's always isolated. And if she just had that one extra teammate there to help, I wonder what difference it would make.
Like, I do agree with that it would be nice to have one other teammate with her, but say there's not, which there isn't at the moment. I don't think that I think it's awesome to see Chabet stepping up again, but I don't think she was ready to go with that really last big surge, even if she hadn't done that lead out. Would have been nice to see her try, definitely. But say Cassia didn't do what she'd done, didn't launch it to, draw out those 4 other riders. You have to think about who else has the interest to do that kind of move, and that was Vollering, or probably Lotte as well.
Mm-hmm.
And to be the one to anticipate a likely attack, because sure, you can bank on the fact that Kopecky and Vollering are going to be there no matter what group forms. I think in this particular race, you can bank on the fact that they don't want to come to the finish together anymore. So you can kind of predict that at least one of them was going to attack. So why not save just that little bit of extra, not be the aggressor for once, and just anticipate that attack, or even anticipate the attacks from Trek, knowing that they would likely have 2 riders as well, and that SD Worx would be also going 1-2 with them. Anticipate that you're going to be the one out in possibly a group of 5 or 6, because I think a lot of people were thinking Boss would be there as well. But to just, of course the fans love her aggressive style, but it's not winning her races. So, what's the point after a while?
Yeah, it goes
why
back
don't
to
you just anticipate what might be happening ahead of you so that you can be number 3 in that last group, not having 2 riders gone because you just missed that last attack.
No, that's a really good point. And I guess when we were talking about her attack at the Setmana Ciclista, she was again the aggressor on that really big climb where Niamh Fisher-Black won. But then, of course, when Niamh went over the top, she couldn't go then with that move. That's a different situation because that's a big climb. But sometimes, I guess, you attack. Actually, the commentators were saying this. When you attack against, like, a situation where there are riders perhaps better than you, it's when you've come back to the bunch and, the bunch has lulled, or, everyone's already hurting at that point. But yeah, I don't know.
In my opinion, the best place for Cassia to attack is after La Tolfe. When there is a group of 5 or 6, she draws out 1 SD Worx and 1 Trek rider and maybe 1 other. And that's it. That's the group, because then Kopecky or Vollering, they're not going to chase each other. Trek are not going to chase each other. You've already created that. Someone else already created the small group, and then you create the even smaller group.
Do you think sometimes it's like a confidence thing? Like, I'm going to get in the attack first, rather than waiting for them to go? Because, like last year when Kopecky went, just no one could go. So it's almost like when you're anticipating it, if you have that fear that, I'm just throwing ideas out here, that fear that when that person goes, there's just no possible way you're going to be able to match them in that moment. Do you think sometimes that plays into it, or is it just her style of racing?
I think part of it is that she just gets really excited and she's like, okay, I have good legs right now, but doesn't also think that everyone else is probably feeling the same at that moment in time, or not feeling as drained yet. I think she's just trying to get ahead of the action before someone else can beat her to it.
But she has, like Gracie said, she's got the form as well. Like, when she put in that attack, she put the hurt on everyone. So clearly she can go with the moves, even if you're maybe 1 meter off the wheel or something like that. But yeah, it is sad to see it happen time and time again, because she is such a passionate rider and an interesting person,
and we love her.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I love her. She's amazing.
Yeah, we were all hoping for her to win or be on the podium, and it was heartbreaking to see her get 4th. But I think she can still learn from this particular experience, because it's clearly, I don't think she needs another opportunity to prove this tactic wrong. Like, I think she just needs to change her tactics. Otherwise, she has to accept that she's going to get fourth a lot more times.
I think if we just looked at the moment that we're talking about when she went, if we were to rewind back time and play it like a video game where we got to control the players, even if Shabby had still let it out into Lotolfe and she was still setting the pace, Vollering would have gone. At that point in time, there would have been another rider that would have made that move instead of Kasia, who would have had another teammate that plays into the dynamics of the tactics of everybody. Like, that was a moment where her going, it animated the race and it was exciting to watch and we loved to see it, but it also was a moment where she could have easily not been the one animating the race. Like, I don't think that if she had not gone at that point, that it would have made the racing more boring.
Well, yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Like, anticipate who else was going to do that for you.
I think even like based on how Phoenix, exactly, every leader in that front group was going to maybe have a crack. I think Puck even would have tried to have a crack again, because Phoenix de Koonik did a ton of work before then trying to, I guess, get her into the right position going in. I don't know why they took responsibility at that moment. I mean, obviously, they're racing really well, and they were one of the teams that had the numbers there. They still had 3 riders left, which was matching both Little Trek and SD Worx.
It was kind of crazy to see how big the group was going into the final kilometers, actually. And I think an interesting thing that they did this year was tack on that extra loop. They did it for the men as well. So they did those final 2 sectors of gravel twice, 4 times total with the extra loop. And I don't think it added much to the race. I think talking to some of the riders before the race, it made people more nervous for the finale, which if the race is going to be harder, then you're going to see people ride more conservatively. And I think that's part of why we saw such a big group going into the final 2 sectors. But I don't know. For me, I don't think adding on the additional gravel did much to make the race more exciting. I think that this is a race that's going to be exciting no matter how long it is and no matter how challenging it is. The gravel is always going to make it more challenging, and the finale is always going to be tricky. And so I feel like there was just no need for this new finish. It definitely added more riders into the dynamic going into that final bit. But then when it came down to it, the riders that were in that group didn't matter because it still was the riders that we thought were going to be in play in the finale anyway.
I didn't think it mattered as much for the women's race as it did for the men's. I think it was even more unnecessary in the men's race.
I think so too. We had some requests to talk about the men's race on the Discord.
We don't need to talk about it. We just need to talk about what a hero Toms is. That's it.
Just one rider.
The only talking point. Hey, I did say I was hoping for a double Trek victory. I hope you did get that in our chat.
Well, they both got second, so they were real close.
Yeah, and you picked it. Elisa Longa Borghini, my draft pick. I didn't pick her actually for the win because I was trying to be left field with my pick. Not really left field. I mean, Shirin is on absolute form at the moment, but she was fantastic. Elisa Longa Borghini, another great ride by her. Trek Little. I mean, I think they're really back, aren't they?
I wrote a piece over the weekend that got a lot of heat in the comment section, but I stand by what I said. I feel like Elisa Longa Borghini rode the perfect race. When it came down to it, she was never going to beat Kopecky. Kopecky was just on better form than everyone else in that race. And it would have taken a miracle for Elisa to be able to get away from Kopecky. And going into the final 2 kilometers, if she went in with Kopecky, she wasn't going to beat her. So the way that the race played out and the hand that Elisa was dealt, I think she rode the perfect race. And I feel like you can narrow it down to one moment and one moment only. That was the moment that I was like, holy shit, we are seeing a different Elisa Longa Borghini than we've ever seen before. And that was the moment where Demi Vollering and Kasia Niewiadoma were had just kind of distanced themselves from the group. There was not much space in between them and the group behind, the group of, I think it was 4 maybe. And Eliza went from the back of that group and just went straight past Demi and Kasia. And I was like, yes, Eliza, that is what you do in that situation. You don't tack onto the back because you're coming on with more speed. If you go onto the back and get in the draft and try to like work with them, you're slowing down and wasting energy, the energy you just spent to get up there. And I loved that moment. And I just thought like, okay, from that moment on, I think she was perfection. She wasn't wasting needless energy by making the attacks. She was following what SD Worx was doing and conserving where she could. And then when she needed to use energy, when she was with Kopecky, she was using it. And I said something about how when she was with Kopecky, just the two of them up the road, if she hadn't worked at all, if Kopecky had continued to kind of do the bare minimum and say like, I've got Demi behind, I don't really have to work, then Eliza's no longer racing for second even. She's now racing like at the worst she's going to get is fifth. When she was up the road with Kopecky, the worst she's going to do is second. So why not do the work at that point? And if you're riding against someone like Kopecky who like it would be really hard to beat. I feel like it's just at that point, like, just do it, just ride. And like, yes, maybe there were things, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Like, I'm happy to be wrong if I'm wrong, but I feel like watching the whole race and watching Kopecky the whole race, that Eliza did everything she could with what she had. And I'm super stoked about how she's riding at the moment, not only the form that she's coming into right now, at like a great time in the season. Throw in how her season went last year, how Trek's season went last year, but also add in that I think tactically she's riding better this year than I've ever seen.
I would agree. I think in general it's a step up from what we've seen her. She's probably has been a bit more like Kasia in the past, a bit too active and a bit too all over the place. And she looks a lot more patient now and thinking better on her feet. Just a small criticism in that I think when she's in smaller groups, she needs to be floating to the back a bit quicker to have a good gauge of what's going on, because that's what Kopecky does straight away as well. She kind of floats around, takes a bit of a gander at everyone, and attacks also from the back, and and it surprises people, which kind of annoys me, because you're like, well, if there's two Trek riders there and two SD Worx riders there.
That's like, that tracky brain though, isn't it? From Kopecky.
Yeah, you can see that very much just has that better tracky brain, and I just wish that a couple of other riders would also learn to do that.
Yeah, Lizzie Diamond's also good at that.
Yeah, and you see Elisa it's not even a hesitation, but she just has to make up those meters and when she's following attacks. So that would only be my small criticism, in that sometimes she's just not quick enough onto an attack, especially a Kopecky attack. But yeah, in general, I didn't have hardly any notes for her. No notes. It was a good race. And I think also in that position, like I've been in that position actually with Lizzie. It was the two of us away at Newsblad, and I didn't back myself, but I also had a director's words in my head of like, you have to race for the win, not for second. And I fucked it up, and then our team came away with nothing, and I should have just ridden with her and got second. Because that was one of her best years pre-kids, and I think that's okay as well, to ride for a result when you know that the odds are against you in either scenario, if you float back, let the group come back to you. So yeah, I also agree that she rode a really good race.
I think and as well, honestly, when they came into that finale, I was still backing her. I mean, yeah, I thought Kopecky would walk away with the win, but she's just in such good form. And for me at the moment, I said this already, Kopecky doesn't have the same snap as last year where she absolutely broke people. I mean, yes, in the end she did ride away from Eliza, but I thought it's been a hard race. Yes, Kopecky's been patient, but Eliza's also ridden a really good, like conserved energy where she needed to. So in terms of what energy they've used in the race, it's relatively the same. So it was back, there. But it's a good point you made there, Gracie, as well. When you make too many of those micro accelerations, which Kopecky doesn't do as much as other riders, that does take that final pop out of your legs. And then that can be the moment between coming second and first.
For Elisa, I think even all of those tiny accelerations added up probably wouldn't have gotten the better of Kopecky, but it might have gotten her closer to the line with Kopecky. It might have made Kopecky sweat a little bit more. And I mean, obviously, there's always room for improvement. But I think for me, watching from home, there is very little that I would be able to criticize about Elisa's performance. And I just think to have her be on such good form mentally and physically, like Trofeo Oro the next day, she just rode away with it pretty much. And I think going into the rest of the season, like, that's just great. We need that. We need someone to step it up like that. And I think in general, watching this race and watching Omloop, I think the peloton, we've got asked so many times over the off season by members who, when we asked for questions to answer on the pod about who would step it up, who would challenge SD Worx. And I think we're seeing a peloton wide step up. Like, I think there are multiple teams that are stepping it up right now. I think one of them is Little Trek. And a lot of that is that they are just having a little bit better luck this year, but also their riders are stepping it up. Elisa's stepping it up. Shirin is stepping it up. Canyon Stram is stepping it up. I feel Phoenix Tekunik is stepping it up. Like, I feel like we're seeing more teams be able to line their ducks in a row and challenge SD Worx. And even though SD Worx still won on Saturday, it wasn't the complete, like, humiliating bulldozing of the peloton that they've done before.
Exactly. It was the way in which they won. Okay, it was fantastic. Kopecky was the strongest on the day. Again, she rode a really patient race, won at the right time. But the whole race was exciting. It wasn't a case of, oh, she's going to win with 40 kilometers to go or something. It was like really, like I was saying, I was hoping out for Elisa at the end there, but sort of knowing that Kopecky was going to get the better of her. But just in general, it feels like there's a difference this year for sure. And going back to my earlier point, how there was that moment where, Amanda Spratt and I think made Niamh Fisher-Black chase. Elise Shabby and Amanda Spratt were like, no, we're not working. We're willing to lose this. What was the words of the commentator actually? Risk. You can cut this out if you want.
No, you're good. Lila just got home from hanging out with Jill, and I can hear her saying, "Mama, mama, mama."
I can't think of the expression right now. What is the expression?
It'll come to you at an annoying time.
Yeah.
No, that's a good pickup, Loren. Though that was a good moment to see Trek, especially Spratty, go. No, up to you.
Because I think we've seen,
you know that they're going to pick up that slack. Like, there are moments when you're like, somebody's going to do something, and it doesn't have to be me, because it will happen.
Yeah.
That was one of those moments.
Well, I think last year or previous years, we've just seen like that panic chasing that happens. And then SD Worx just chill, and then they do their thing. They put in the big attack.
Yeah.
And it's like the other teams have, burnt too many bickies and lost a couple of riders. Whereas they could sit back and go, no, we're confident. We know what we're going to do. We're going to stick to the plan. The gap's not that big, but you're going to bring it back because you've got the most to lose here. You've got the world champion. She said she wanted to win today. We're going to just stick to what we're doing. And that's a hard thing to do. But I think when you've got really strong team captains, and I'd assume Spratty was probably the captain on the day. And yeah, I think just in general, it's definitely been a shift. That's what everyone is noticing. It's been just a couple of weeks of racing now. But I hope that we continue this sort of mindset going into the next races.
Or Lizzie. Like, having Lizzie back for the team and back in that front group is got to be making a massive difference. She is just like, not only is she just an incredible well of knowledge when it comes to racing your bike, She's also, her attitude on and off the bike elevates the entire team from everything that I've heard from riders. Like having her around at the dinner table even just makes the whole team more comfortable and confident in themselves and each other. And I think that was something that even when she was in the races last year, she was fresh off of having her second baby. She's been honest and vocal about how different it was from the first and how much more challenging it was. And I think now, a year on, she's actually feeling herself again and like really feeling ready to be in that lead group. And so those are coming together to once again make Trek the super team that it was in 2020, the first couple years that they were a team. And I think we're only going to see Lizzie get better throughout the season.
For sure.
Yeah. All in all, an awesome race. I love Strade. I cannot wait for next year's version. The weather didn't play like a massive role, but it was wet, which means that the dirt is a little bit harder to race over, especially like freshly wet. If it had rained the day before, it would actually make the race a lot faster. But for rain on the day, would have added an extra layer of just like blah. And we've talked before about how that mentally affects riders and how I think, Gracie, you've said that when it rains, you line up and you're more excited. And then because you know that other riders are just like
fearful.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say more excited, but yeah, just knowing that you can turn it around mentally. Just you can give yourself the edge if you choose to, because no one actually likes racing in the rain.
No.
Except for, I know one person who likes it. It's Tom's.
Are they from Scotland?
No, they're from Latvia. It's cold there. It's cold and wet. Speaking of weather, the next World Tour race we've got is coming up this weekend, Ronde van Drenthe. And this is a super interesting one where the weather has come into play before. Last year, it like snowed. Last year looked so miserable. But this year, and like years in the past, it's come down to a sprint. It's been a select group. It's been a solo rider. Like, this is such an interesting race that can go many different ways, but it does favor a sprint. The last 3 editions have been won by Lorena Wiebes. But this year they weren't able to secure the permits to have the course that they've had in the past that ends in town. So the race is different this year. They actually are going to finish where the Dutch nationals finished, I think, when Rihanna Marcus won. And so it's a little bit more challenging, the finish, because it's right after they go up
the Vanberg.
It's right after they go up the Vanberg, up the cobbled part to the very top, and then they drop down, and then they take like a right, and then they go up like one more little poppy climb, and then it's the finish. So it's not a sprinter's race, because it's something that Wiebes can absolutely win, but it's something that Vos can also win as well, because it's not a pure sprinter's race. It's not going to be the bunch sprint that we saw like in 2022 when Elisa Balsamo and Wiebes went head to head. So we're looking ahead to another, like, I think it's going to be a pretty good race, honestly. This is an interesting one, because I feel like this race, it's been on the calendar since 2007. Like, it's one of the, which... not that long, but it's one of the longer running races for the women. Like Strade, I think that, what was the first year we had Strade? 2014, 15. Yeah. So it's a race that has been around and won by some pretty big names. And I think this year it's going to be very different from anything we've seen from it before. Yeah. And who knows? Maybe it'll snow.
That's a big change in finish, really. So... like, I think you're right, Abby, that it won't necessarily change the type of rider it suits to finish, but it could still be a mix-up in dynamic of how it's raced.
And of course, in this part of the Netherlands, or just in general when you're racing in the Netherlands, wind is always a factor. So I'm not sure what the wind will be doing, but that is always a key factor in this race.
I don't know if the wind will have as big a role without the big open roads, because you know how you start in town and then you go out and there's like a lot of country roads before you get back to the Vanberg and do the circuits, And I think this year they're doing some of that, but they're not doing all of it. Like I think most of the race is the circuits on the Vanberg.
Yeah,
So it might
be a totally
negate
different
the wind
race
a little bit.
Well, then it just comes down, like this race is always a race of positioning. But what we've seen in the past, when I think they had the Europeans there or the Dutch national championships, is just, it gets so whittled down because those circuits, it's just so narrow and so technical that unless you're riding in the top 15 wheels, it's just constant tapping on and off all day. So a rider like Wiebes, we know, is just fantastic at this. Elisa Balsamo, I guess, will show up for this race, I'm hoping, unless they send... Well, with this finish, she'd be better than Clara Caponi.
Yeah, I think they would pick Balsamo. It's going to rain.
Another
rain. That's a bit of added fun.
For us, behind the screen.
Not for them.
Because it's also been it's been like one day cold here and then one day mild. So, or we call it soft temperatures in Dutch, but we'll see.
I like that.
Soft temperatures. Zacht.
I'd like to see, after such a good Aussie summer, I'd like to see Loretta Hanson really up there on this race.
Yeah, she could absolutely do well, depending on how it goes. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see it be like a select break that isn't filled with the top riders. This is such an interesting race, kind of like, I say that too much. I think I need like an interesting jar. A jar where every time I say interesting, you guys make me pay $0.25 or something. It's kind of like Trofeo Alfredo Binda, in that it's one of the outliers of the spring season that doesn't usually attract like the top of the peloton. There are definitely, some teams bring their best riders, but some don't. And so you have this mix of kind of opportunists and riders like Balsamo who might not have the full support of what Trek would bring to, say, Gent Wevelgem for Balsamo. They're not going to bring to Drenthe. Like Ilaria will Yaya will probably be there. Yo-yo. Ilaria Sanguinetti will probably be there, but it's not going to be, Lizzie and Eliza and Balsamo and Ilaria there to race for Balsamo. It's going to be...
Is Ellen going to be there?
Like, I don't know. That'd be fun. I don't think she would do a World Tour race.
And Chantal, maybe?
You never know.
That'd be fun.
She was on the provincial, God, I can't speak today, start list for Hageland, and then she wasn't there, and I was so bummed. Anyway, my point that I keep getting sidetracked from is that it's not always like the top of the sport that come to this race, which opens it up for riders like Loretta, because it means that SD Worx won't have their full squad there to pull everything back and make sure that Wiebes, it's just more added factors. And I feel like for that, with the weather and also with the new finish, that it kind of lends itself more towards a surprise winner.
Well, I think, like you're saying, that course lends itself to a break as well, because going back to how technical it will be, and with the weather conditions, organizing a chase is really difficult then. So if you do get that gap, if you are trying to bring it back and you're trying to get your riders up, or, and also factors like punctures and riders coming down, because this sort of race is notorious for those kind of crashes that take people out of contention. So I really, do think that a rider like Loretta, or let's think of some other riders similar to Loretta who could get in that front group, are strong, have the form right now and the confidence, and their team are actually happy to back them, and let them have a ride. Let them have a go, I should say. Yeah,
I mean, I would shocked if, like, obviously Wiebes will be going, but I would expect SD Worx-Protime to also have Misha Bredewald there as a backup, for example.
She's okay after her crash?
I think so.
Yeah, because she would be a rider that I could see winning a race like this.
She hit the ground pretty hard, but I think that she will be fine by Drenthe or will be able to race Drenthe. But it would be a really good race for her. If SD Worx didn't have Weebus, then they would be going for Misha here, I feel like.
Another good race for someone like Micah van der Doen, one of my draft picks, I think.
She's going to be racing, right? There's no start list, obviously. It's a Monday, and this race is notorious for just poorly organized start. But like Sylvia Persico, maybe we'll see her kind of throw down.
Is there still that like Drenthe Act, the one 2 days before, like a version of it?
That race. That race sucks. I hate that race so much.
I have really fond memories of that race.
Yeah, I was thinking that, Loren, you've got a good memory.
It would have been a great memory if it had been.
You should hate that race more than I do. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well.
Actually, we didn't really talk. I mean, part of this was the change the finish for Strade, but there was so many DNFs. Only 55 riders finished the race, and just like whole teams didn't finish.
Whole teams.
The whole team in question. Yeah, the entirety of one of the small Italian teams didn't finish. Most of WNT as well, and 3 of the Italian teams had a really rough go. Anyway, and all of Tashkent City for Tills. It was, I think because they changed the finish, they pulled riders before the circuit. Going back to Strade, we have a new tally for our draft. It is no surprise that the new leader of the draft, by quite a large margin, is Matt Denif, with Lotte Kopecky getting all the points this weekend. But he is now winning by 2,962 points over Gracie's 2,849. That's not that big of a margin, but it's still pretty big.
That's pretty good. Yeah. I feel like he's going to rack up a few more big points.
Look, like I said offline, if you got the Kopecky card, like he got the first pick. I mean, I was the last one. I think you were the second last. We were just effed from the get-go.
Yep.
Yeah, but Gracie was second to last, and she's still beating the 3 of us by like hundreds.
Because Gracie is Gracie. I know. Gracie was more strategic in her picking. I was saying Gracie.
My strategy might not pay off later in the season, though. So everyone's got a shot.
I'll be the latecomer.
You never know what I said. Happen. Yeah. So Tills has made a just glorious comeback. Yeah, she's in third with 2,370 something, and a lot of that is Kasia Niewiadoma obviously having a good race, but also Rihanna Marcus was kind of up there, and
she was really strong.
Guazzini got her points last weekend that I didn't tally up. I am solidly in last place now, with Loren had obviously some points from Elisa Longo Borghini, and Avita Music got her some points as well. So I'm losing.
It's all right, Abby. Don't lose sleep over it like I did. I actually was lying awake at 4 a.m. A few days ago, like thinking about my life choices, and just going over the draft. I'm like, why are you lying awake thinking about this? It's a game. Why are you being so competitive?
It's just a game that I need to win.
I'm stressed. I mean, I think there's a couple like sneaky ones in there that like Gracie's got, like Neve Bradbury is having such a good season. She looked so good. Like she was up there for a long time in the race. I was like stoked to see that.
And she's got those early season points as well. So she's going to carry those
Christina
all the way
Schweinberger
through.
As well.
Yeah.
I picked up a lot of early season points. That was one of my strategies. But like I said, it might not pay off.
Yeah. It's early days.
I'm looking at Voss for this weekend for Drenthe. Yeah, I'm like Voss or Fight for Georgie. I think those two are going to pull through for me.
Yeah, like we said last week, there's still a few riders we haven't seen yet, some big names. So that's the best is yet to come.
Yeah. It better be, because Matt cannot beat us all in this draft.
Maybe like after the Olympics, Lotta's just going to take a big rest until Worlds. I don't know. She's going to rack up a lot of points.
Maybe she decides, I actually don't care about the road. I'm just going to focus purely on the track. And even though I did say at the beginning, when I was editing the episode, I said that all UCI points counted, but I meant to say road. Like, I don't want to open that bucket.
But I thought Lotta, isn't she going for gold on the track? Did she say yeah.
Yeah, but
As
both.
you do.
Speaking of the Olympics, one thing we didn't talk about with Strade was Kristen Faulkner. Got back into that final group and finished 5th behind the chasing group with Kasia, Shirin, Demi. But I think, like, when it comes to Olympic selection, Faulkner is like really putting her name out there for that second US spot.
I wished I knew how much she had to like bridge the gap to get back to that group. Because we didn't really get to see where she ended up over La Tolfe and like how she did make it back to that group, because one of the camera shots was like, oh, she's back. Where'd she come from? If she was only just dangling for ages, or if she actually had to ride a fair chunk back.
She did a ton of work, and she was one of the riders that actually pieced everything back together at one point.
When it came to the coverage, it left a little bit to be desired, because there was a lot of moments like that where I was like, man, I just wish I knew what was happening right now to the left of the camera shot. But yeah, I feel like Kristen, she was, looking pretty strong in that group, and sitting on the back of that group when she made that move to try to get away from the group. Going into the climb, I think she knew that there was no way she was going to beat the rest of those riders up into the finish, which is why she was trying to get away from them early. But for a rider who is so fresh on the scene, to be up there with the other riders that she was with is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, I don't know. We didn't speak about her, I guess, and her win in Haagerland and how she went solo for 50 kilometers, which is something she has done before. And obviously last year we didn't see much or anything of her after Strade, or after what point was it that we didn't really see much of Kristen Faulkner? Yeah. So she has that capability. She's got a massive engine, but again, she's a rider who's still figuring out tactics and how to just maybe race a bit more conservatively. I think that's why in these bigger races, you can't always pull off that long solo move, because people know that that's your card. So you can get away with it in the smaller UCI races, but when you're racing against,
unless you're Marlon Royce,
another level.
Then you just are like, screw you guys, I'm gonna go.
But yeah, she will be a rider, I think. If she stays healthy this year, she'll rack up some points. And I think, who has Faulkner? Matt? Yeah.
He doesn't need any more points. Maybe we should have made it a rule. Whoever picked Kopecky was only allowed 9 riders.
Or as my partner said, when we get to pick a rider for the weekend's race, if you pick Kopecky, you pick Kopecky. Everyone else gets to pick 3 riders, just to even it out. And if it's tour season and you pick Demi, the same applies.
We'll see. I don't know about Demi this year. Well, I'm gonna eat my words. I just want the racing to be exciting. I want it to be edge of your seat.
It's been good.
I want to not know who's going to win the race. So far, It's been good. I mean, we knew that Kopecky was going to win Strade, but it was still really exciting. You guys got any obsessions?
Not really. I finished. I think last week my obsession was Ted Lasso, and I finished the very last episode last night after not a very good sleep, after commentating. And I just cried for a whole hour. It was such a good episode. I just lost it. But I'm sad because now that obsession's done. But I reckon it's one of those series I might go rewatch again because it was so good. I'm actually reading this absolute tome of a book that my auntie gave me that I put off for ages because it's about Queen Victoria, who was queen in the I've already forgotten now, even though I'm reading it. She was queen in the 19th century. And I'm not a royalist at all. I couldn't give a crap about the royals in general. But like this book is really good because it's about her and what kind of a badass lady she was back then when it wasn't a very friendly time for women in general, and how she became one of the most prominent people in that monarchy and country and all that for the better part of 100 years. So it's kind of cool. Despite the royal aspect of it, it's like it's a bit historical, which is I always like history or historical fiction, but it's cool to read about a strong woman back when it wasn't much of a thing.
It's a historical fictional book.
No, it's actually just a biography. Yeah.
What's it called? Just Queen Victoria, or?
Yeah, I think it's just called Victoria by Julia Baird. And that's another reason why it's a good book, because the author is fantastic. She's written books that I can recommend to most people. She's written Phosphorescence, which is a beautiful book around wonder and awe and how that can really make our lives so much better, and how to look for it and how to foster it. And she's written another book that I haven't read yet about grace, and it's about a similar kind of like living with grace and what that really means. So yeah, she's a great author and journalist and columnist, and she wrote a book about Queen Victoria. So it's an odd recommendation, but I'm actually enjoying it.
No, it's a good one. I'm also reading a good book. I love historical fiction, and for some reason, all the books I'm reading at the moment are around World War II. I don't know. I just keep picking up the same sort of genre. It's called The Alice Network.
I love that book.
It's really good.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm reading that one at the moment so slowly. My God, I was plowing through books last year, and then since having little Louis, things have slowed down. The only time I get to read is like a few pages here and there when it's feeding time. But I'm really loving it, and it's like those sweet 10 to 15 minutes of reading that I get, little pockets of here and there. So that's the book I'm excited about, or obsessed with, I would say.
The author of the Alice Network wrote another book that I just like absolutely love,
I want to read that next.
It's super good. I think I liked it more than the Alice Network, actually. But
so
it was
well written.
It's it's really
one
good.
of my recommendations for the book club. I'm gonna put it out there, definitely. Maybe I'll put The Huntress as the next book.
I'll read it with you. Can I?
You can join.
Yeah,
you can join.
you.
I was like thinking, actually, for the 4 faraway friends, we should do that. We could do a book.
Yeah.
It would take me at this point in time
fun.
forever to get through it, but
I was about to say, let's not have a timeline on the book. We could just raise thoughts when we think about them.
Yeah.
No, audiobooks.
I've not gotten. I
That's
used to listen
to
audiobooks like when I was a child, and like rent out the little cassettes from the library, like what was it called, The Famous Five, and all that sort of stuff. I don't know if you read those books.
There is an awesome app called Fable that you can create a book club in, and then as you read through the book, you can comment on chapters. So it's like hidden until you click on it. So there's no spoilers if you're behind in the book. You just like when you get to that point, you click on the chapter, and like the people in your book club have either like commented or haven't gotten there yet, and you get to put your first thoughts. And it's super cool because it means that like you don't have to check in and be like, where are you in this book? You can just like be friends on Fable, and then you can comment on the book as you're reading it, and your friends will chime in when they can.
Oh, we should try that.
We can do that. Yeah.
I'd love that.
That'd be super fun.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Put it in the chat.
I'll make us a book club. I'm obsessed with our book club.
Actually, you know what else I'm obsessed with? The 4 faraway friends. Yeah.
Me too. Brings me much joy.
Love to Taylor Wiles.
Yeah, Taylor Wiles, we love you. Is it lame if I say that I'm obsessed with my husband?
No, that's a lovely, really sweet thing to say.
I think this week we can let you off for that one.
I think we're all a bit obsessed with Tom's at the moment. I was saying to like my father-in-law, I'm like, yeah, I know that guy. That's my friend's husband. He's a really nice guy too.
I feel like with a tiny bit of insider information, it made my commentary so much better because I was like, yes, well, I do know that he's really targeting the World Championships and the Olympics this year, and it's great to see that the team has been finally giving him some leadership. And I was just like, yeah, sounds like I know what I'm talking about. It's good.
Yeah. I'm obsessed with him. He finished the race and his first text to me was, hey love, how's everything at home? And I was just like,
oh,
you're so awesome.
Yeah. Aw.
So I'm just obsessed with him.
Excited for the upcoming races. And Abby coming to Belgium.
I'm obsessed with coming to Flanders. Yeah.
Isn't the Escape Collective, are they going to be here for Flanders? Well, they're doing a day trip to Bruges as well. So if any of the listeners are joining that trip, then I will try to be there.
Yeah, they're doing such a cool trip. They're doing like a whole week-long, like 10-day long trip, Flanders and Paris-Roubaix. With the Escape Collective. It's past now, but the member summit, so members of the Escape Collective can buy tickets and come over and hang out with like all the journalists. So we'll be there. Everyone on the whole staff is going to be there except for me, James, and Dave. And so you can, hang out with Johnny Long and bug him about, I don't know, laundry, talk to Ronan about aerodynamics and kid about movies. It's going to be a super fun week for everyone who signed up for it. And I think we'll do another one next year. So if anybody missed the boat, you can always come next year as well.
But you're going to join the collective first.
Yeah, first you have to become a member of the Escape Collective, which if you haven't, what are you doing? Yeah, cool. Well, this was great. We'll be back next week to talk about Drenthe and anything else that comes up. Hopefully Voss delivers a win so that I am not in last place anymore. It's a bit embarrassing, but it's fine.
Abby, you just made too many heart picks.
Yeah.
I literally did. I was actually telling it up, looking at it like I made too many heart picks.
But you know what? That's a nice reflection on you, not your actual knowledge of cycling.
I think that Shirin and Misha Bredewald are going to carry my team. I think we're going to get there.
Oh, they've still got a lot of points to rack up the coming races, I'm sure of that.
Exactly.
Yep.
And we have the trade, the
mid-season. If all else fails. Yeah, there are some riders though that, like we said at the end of the draft, that we just didn't, I don't know why, didn't think of. But I had this whole list, and like I said to you offline, Abby, like how did I skim past certain riders? Like when I got to do like the double picks, I should have, anyway.
The nerves.
I panic picked. I don't know.
I panic picked multiple of the riders on mine. So
anyway, here we are.
It's fine. This is where we are. Okay. Talk to you guys next week.
Bye.